This is kind of a throwback. I had this intro music for years, and I just can't let it go. I just can't let it go. I probably need to upgrade that. Everything's being upgraded.
Yeah,
And today,
stick
I,
with it.
do you guys have a podcast? You guys do a lot of media on your sites too. Do you guys have a podcast?
We don't, but we have partners that have podcasts. So we don't host our own, but we try to get out
Yeah,
there.
you just bootleg on everybody else. You let everyone else do the hard work. You let me do the heavy lifting.
We find good partners.
Yes, you do. You know what? My logo is like totally covering your face.
That's okay.
No, that's like way too big.
Welcome to do that.
Yeah, it's like, that's not going to work. Here we go. Let's see if we can, look at this. On the fly, we can kind of fix this right here. That's great. So, Shannon, I have to be honest with you. This is a topic that is so near and dear to my heart. I started as an executive recruiter, and one of the biggest challenges that I always had when I was trying to recruit somebody to come to another company was trying to explain what the company's culture or brand was. And I didn't realize there were companies out there that actually specialized in, giving companies, helping them, I guess, with their culture and their branding. This is something that you guys obviously specialize in. Before we get kind of deep into that subject, how in the world did you end up in this industry?
That is a great question. I also started off as a recruiter. So I was an agency recruiter back in the late 90s in the Washington, D.C. area. And I had a book of clients, and I was selling my clients and the opportunities and trying to sell the brand and match great candidates with them. And so, I started off in recruiting. I left agency recruiting. I went in-house. And fast forward to about 2008 or so, I was at Geico. And our senior vice president of HR said, "Hey, what does social media, what does employer brand, what does all this stuff mean for Geico?" And I said, "I don't know," but I raised my hand and said, "I'd love to find out." And that's really when my career in employer brand started. And then since then, I've worked in employer brand Geico, and then went to the CEB, which is now part of Gartner. And then in 2016, I left in-house. I wanted to take that employer brand experience and scale it and work with clients. And I've been at exaqueo ever since.
I think the best place to make a career change is inside your current company. My opinion is that you're already a known commodity.
You're a known
If
commodity.
you're a known commodity, and they can know you, they trust you, they love your work, your integrity, so they let you try something different. I think it's very difficult to take your skill set in something you've never done and go out into the open market. I think that's a very classic way to make that career change shift.
I was still a desk. I was working a desk and working my recs when I was at Geico. So I was still recruiting. And then I was doing employer brand sort of off the side of my desk of like, how do I figure this out? I was running research with other people that are in different offices and like trying to do both for a little bit. And then as that grew, we realized, no, this is actually a full-time role. And then it became a full-time role plus additional people and time and resources to build it too. So yeah, great point. Like starting inside and starting to make that shift forever. I'm grateful to.
It's great. I mean, it's really great. And I know for me, that's kind of what happened for me in marketing, was that I knew I wanted to eventually break out of executive search, and it just happened to make sense that, for me to switch over to do something that I really love, I had some experience in, was marketing. So it made total sense for me to do that in-house for a staffing company.
Yeah.
But the point is that both of us, having seen the marketplace from the candidate's point of view,
Yep.
we recognize how important it was that the attracting client really has to present themselves in such a way that is attractive, not just to the external, but also for retention for those internal employees. So as I was thinking through the complexity of what you're doing is helping a company go through branding, how do you manage this challenge between, you've identified a company that needs to update their brand, but their culture is suffering. It doesn't do you any good, in my opinion, just to paper over everything with a beautiful brand online
Yeah.
and you've got this culture behind it. So how do you guys manage that's a big, big project, right? Trying to change people's minds and approach.
Yeah. So one brand, we brand from the inside, right? And so when we think about employer brand, it's not built in the boardroom. It is not the C-suite saying, this is how we're going to show up and here's our message. When we start, it's all about understanding the authentic lived experience of employees. And so all of the engagements, it is a big piece of work. We are trying to influence and change perceptions, but we're also helping to uncover and define what is real and what's authentic, because each organization has something different to offer. And candidates aren't going to thrive inside of every company. You want to show up and be real. So we do focus groups with employees. We start with leadership interviews to understand what are leaders' perceptions. We will do surveys with organizations so that we get as much representation as possible across the organization, locations, different.
Anonymous, I hope.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why our clients hire us, is because we can come in unbiased,
I mean, you don't
confidential,
want to be the one squeaky wheel that, is saying the ugly truth and then you get singled out.
but we want the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah,
I've
no, you do. You need it.
all of those things, because
Yeah.
then we boil it down to, here are your attractors, here are your realities, and here are your detractors. Here's the reasons people come, the reasons that they would stay, the things that just make it what it is to work here. And then here are the reasons that people wouldn't come, wouldn't accept an offer, or reasons that they might leave. And so when you look at those three big components, we can say, well, what is it about the real lived experience that we can then brand, that we can communicate both internally and externally? So it's not all about the attractors. It's not all about the great things. We've got
Mhm.
real and bring in those realities. I'll give you an example. We have a client and they have farms, and then the vegetables go and they're packaged and then they go into refrigerated units. And so part of the reality of working there is that you may be working in a work environment that is 32 degrees. That's not going to be the
You
working.
can't change that.
You can't change it. It is a reality. Now, for some people, might that be a detractor? Absolutely. That's great. We want them to know
For
that
me, I would love it. I'm always battling people in the office for heat.
but for some people, they might say, that's fine. It is what it is. Like, I'm
Yeah.
happy to work in that as long as all of the other parts of the opportunity are fit for me. And so it's really understanding those bits and pieces and getting that firsthand information that we can then bring back in insights first and say, here's what we learned about your audience. Here's what we learned about employees and what they're saying. And then we use those insights to inform the brand strategy. So we're not just pulling words out of the air or taglines
Mhm.
that sound cool. We're bringing that authenticity to the strategy.
So I want to take one step back because I think everything you have said makes total sense. You're coming with data, you've done analysis, you've done your focus groups, but I'm thinking about the executive. I'm thinking about maybe a VP, maybe even a middle manager. They're in a company. What would be the telltale signs for them that maybe they have a brand problem? What are
Mm.
the little triggers that they think, we need outside help? And then I think the second part of that question is, how do you sell that? That isn't that kind of a tricky line you have to cross, when you talk to people and say, God, I think we have a problem. And you're talking to the people who maybe are the ones who are causing the problem.
Uh, so client organizations will come to us if a couple of different reasons. So one, if they are going into a new market and they haven't gone in that market, they really want to understand it a little bit. Maybe they're building a new office in a new state and they feel as though they need to have information around how to attract talent in that area. clients come to us if they are scaling and growing. So we've got clients that say, we're at X hundred number of employees, but we are going to scale and we'll be at X thousand within the next 3 to 5 years. So they see it as an opportunity to really, as part of their talent attraction and their growth strategy, M&A, mergers and acquisitions. So two new groups together. What is that people and culture experience going to look like and feel like? How are we going to show up for this new larger group of employees? So those are kind of the main reasons that
Well, you're talking about bigger companies. So maybe my question is, I was maybe approaching this from a mid-sized company. And I think obviously what you've described, these are larger companies.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think. I mean, a lot of the clients it would depend on how you define mid-size. So we do have clients that are a few hundred employees, and it's usually around some sort of growth story, or they're trying to compete with the larger companies. So we're a smaller organization, but we're trying to compete because this big tech company is now coming into our area. We need to stand out and grow.
I see.
So that could be usually around some sort of growth story, or the organization's going through some sort of other transformation. New leadership team has come in,
and they just need to understand.
And people and culture is an imperative for them. They realize that without our people, we're not going to be able to deliver whatever service or solution or goods to our customers. So we need to get that right first. And so that, a leader driving that could also be a reason why they would want to uncover and define the brand.
Yeah, I think to your point, this is seen as an opportunity to improve upon what you currently have, or maybe to understand what you currently are, so you can meet your growth objectives. And obviously there's a lot of different reasons why you could approach. And I think my initial thought was, people are going to hear this and they're going to say, we could absolutely use a rebranding, but the problem is I have to sell it internally. And there may be people that don't see and understand that they need it. Like, you are very savvy. You've seen lots of different companies. It's very obvious to you. You can see that company could use a refresh. But for people who are on the inside who might know that, they're challenged with, how do I build consensus? How do I bring people to this realization so then we can go out and do that? Because I think everyone would love to have their company upgrade. There's no question. So I was thinking, what's the real challenge? Maybe the real challenge is getting your own company to realize we should spend money on this.
Yeah. So, engagement surveys sometimes are a little bit of a fire or a spark that have conversations, or Glassdoor reviews, executive system. Oh, why are people talking about us this way? Like, that's not how we are. That's not how we show up. So there might be other little sparks that just need to be
flamed. Pushed.
Exactly. So
that's a good tip, though. That's an excellent tip.
Looking for those other nuggets or those indicators that say there might be something that we want to change perceptions. Maybe we're growing. Maybe we're better than our competitors, or we believe that we are. We haven't told our story in a really compelling way, and we need help with that. So I think there's a lot of different reasons why an organization might, but the internal buy-in, the executive buy-in, without that, your employer brand, your people culture initiatives, we often see it will fail if we don't have that buy-in. So it's a really, really important point that you made.
Well, I'd love to hear some examples, both good transformations and how it impacted those organizations, but I'd also love to hear just what are some of the biggest no-nos that you've discovered that companies have just fallen into when it comes to, say, talent attraction or even the internal? You said you start with the internal brand. Let's face it, if you're a big company, you want to retain that talent. You want to move them around. You want to show them a future. Stay here. Don't listen to those recruiters. Don't listen to the Shannon. Don't listen to the Tony when they call you.
Yeah.
Stay here. So I'd love to hear some examples of some, good changes, how it impacted the company, but maybe hear some no-nos too that you've seen in your time. You've worked with hundreds of companies, so I'd love to hear the bad too.
So we did. So I mentioned we always start with research, right? And we've got methodologies and processes and things that are tried and true and vetted and that we use, but we never know what the data is going to tell us until we've actually executed the research and then really look at it. We code and theme and analyze all of the qualitative and quantitative research. And so we were doing a survey, focus groups, and interviews with a really large real estate client, and we uncovered that onboarding was a potential obstacle or roadblock for them. So onboarding is really important because we've gone from being a candidate and being told what it's like to work here. We've read the marketing, the job descriptions, we've gone through the interview process, we've been sold on this opportunity. And then we get into onboarding and go, this is
Wah, wah, wah. There's a disconnect.
and this particular client had a pretty high 90-day turnover. And so when we uncovered and we dug into the reasons, like what was going on there was a disconnect. And so bringing that information to the CMO, the CHRO, and having those conversations with our core team as well, we were able to illuminate that there was this disconnect between the candidate and the employee experience. And then they were able to action plan and address that. So that's an example of how.
Okay, but what were they doing wrong in the onboarding? Because every company, if you can say, look, every company goes through onboarding. So can you say what the challenge was there?
Inconsistencies, I would say. We can't get too much into
No, I know.
proprietary findings.
Shannon's last day at exaqueo was on the Jobtopia podcast.
Right, but when that experience is inconsistent from the promise that you've made, and that's one of the things that we look at. So I manage our experience practice. We take the insights, we build the brand, and then part of my job is helping the client to deliver on that brand promise over and over and over again throughout the candidate experience and their employee experiences. And so it's not just to build the brand and put it out there. We're not just putting a splashy line on a career site or throwing.
That's what I was thinking.
Wall, right? We've got to
exactly
pull it through.
They're going to just see right through that.
Exactly.
So tell me, what are some brand promises? Again, I'd love to hear just some of the ideas that companies have come up with or what they think they are.
Yeah. So what they think. So when we're doing, I mentioned the attractors, realities, detractors. And so we help them identify what are the core truths of who they are as an employer? How do you want to show up for people? And so that often will, like in marketing and on the consumer brand side, you have brand pillars. And so brand pillars might be around our people. Our people are smart, or our people are dedicated, our people are committed. There might be, as a leadership team, we care. Or you'll find that the organization, the people that are here, it's a very caring environment, a supportive environment. We have clients that work in really, really possibly dangerous environments.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So
particularly if you're in manufacturing, warehousing, forklifts, everything.
So how are you creating a safe environment? Because not all organizations are doing that. So safety becomes a differentiator. Right. So it's through the research that we start to uncover what part of those promises are. Some organizations are we organizations. It's a collective. We're winning together. Others are a more individual. You make this place special. you're making the impact versus the we're making an impact. So we help organizations kind of define and
Oh, that's
articulate.
kind of interesting. The
Yeah,
we versus I.
we versus I.
Is
That's
that a, do you think that's a, I know this is, I'm getting kind of granular on you, but when I think of that as a positioning statement,
Mhm.
the, the I, isn't that more of like a sales type of person? Like that alpha kind of driver, someone who wants to make accomplishments and see how high they can go. And I could be wrong on that, but that's kind of how that strikes me.
yeah. Um, maybe the true
Are
consulting
you an attorney? The attorneys are great with that. They
depends.
yeah, there you go. It depends.
Depends.
It's
Um,
it's an interesting angle. That's why I'm saying it's an interesting way to try to speak to someone as an individual,
yep.
because some people they don't want to be out in front. You know, they do love to be in that team environment. They feel they want to be part of something.
Yep.
So that's the we. And then you've got those high achievers, and that could be the I. So again, that's just a my perspective of having, recruited a lot of alphas.
It could helping the individual connect what they do, their work, to the bigger picture also could be part of the positioning. So when we're going through an employer brand strategy exercise with a client, it's not just about the core truths and the experience, and we help craft a beautiful line that is a summary powerful statement of the experience. We've got their pillars, but we're also going through a positioning exercise like you would in marketing of like, here's what your competition, how they're showing up, here's the white space and where we think you could show up. Not every organization is going to have a we or an I. There might be something else that's there, but we're looking at all of those different components of the experience and the relationship that they're creating for employees in order to help them articulate how they helping them to define and articulate how they will brand and market.
Yeah, and I love how you said you inform the brand. So you're recognizing that there's people and practices and parts of the organization that are responsible for doing this, and you're informing them of the information that you've come up with from your studies.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the brand promise of, say, safety. I think that one kind of stands out to me because we do staffing for manufacturers. And so that is the number one thing that we focus on is all of our branches, all the branch managers, even the staffing coordinators, they learn to do safety walks, and they have to be, OSHA certified, OSHA 30, so they can go through and identify and see, well, we're putting our people into this environment, and we have to know that these things are going to have to be changed. We have to make, more safety changes. So that's operationally how it would show up. But how do you help an organization make that part of their marketing and their website and their text? Do you give them some kind of modules? Do you give them what kind of deliverables do you help them rather than just say, hey, you should focus on safety? Do you give them a little bit more customized results depending on what they need?
Yeah. So we'll start with the insights report. Share here's what we learned about your employment experience. Then the brand strategy. Here is how we would recommend that you talk to your market, your internal employees, and externally to attract talent. Um, and so that can show up in a number of different ways. It can show up in an employer brand guidebook. So just like marketing would have consumer brand guidelines, we can also craft and create that for our clients. Message maps. Here are the different ways that we can go to market with key messages that are grounded in research. Here are the messages that you might use at this part of the candidate experience or during your onboarding or when someone's looking for a new role internally. So we start to connect messages that are aligned to the brand that we're connecting it to different touch points and different parts of the experience. We can do writing for our clients as well. So we've had clients say, we're doing open enrollment, or we're running this campaign, or we want to better message around our referral program, or trying to think, or just benefits in general, or we want to be able to have this message out to our employees. Can you help us do that? And so we can also provide toolkits and actually do the writing for the clients too, if they are looking for an extension of their team and they need additional resources.
Yeah, because I think that's the most challenging to me. Again, one of the many areas that are challenging in this is that you have to make sure it's integrated at every level, right? So the C-suite, your executives, your directors, your manager, your staff level. Again, it just can't be slapping a slogan on, a break room wall, right? So it's that carefully thought out, here's how we implement this practically at every step of the way. Do you guys put people through or encourage them to go through like training, like culture training, changes
Yeah.
in approach for management? Because that, for example, I know I'm kind of going on this, but
No.
I'm in a nonprofit when I'm not working. Now, there's a nonprofit I'm part of, and one of the key pillars is servant leadership. I've talked about this before, but this is a video, so I can actually do this now. I've always done this on the audio, but servant leadership is this, okay? It's a V, and the leader is at the bottom of the V. And so normally it's like this, right? You've got the CEO at the top and everyone's below. But in servant leadership, the CEO is at the very bottom. And the CEO supports the SVPs, the VPs. And then if you're the VP, you're at the bottom. And if you're a manager, you're at the bottom. So you're supporting everyone above you.
Yeah.
And this requires a rewiring, a retraining to get people, because if that's your brand promise and yet you're thinking like this and you should be thinking like this,
Right.
you see you're going to have that disconnect.
Right.
You're going to have people leaving at 90 days because you just say it.
Right. But if you are an organization that is top down and there's hierarchy, that will come out in the research. And that might be something that you have to own. And that's something that is part of how work gets done here. We have clients that will say that there's a chain of command. We also have had clients where they say we're a flat organization. There is no chain of command. And so it's really understanding who you are as an employer, how you want to show up to people, and then you lean into that. You're honest about it, you're open about it. So it's not a surprise. So if you're in an organization that's servant leadership, you've got to make sure everybody's aligned. Then if somebody isn't experiencing that, that becomes a disconnect in the brand promise. If you're in an organization that is really hierarchical and it's bureaucratic, um, that might come out of the research as this is a detractor. This is reasons why people are leaving. One of my favorite deliverables as part of our insights is here are the things to amplify. Here are the things to address. You're going to amplify it because it's authentic, it's real, it's bringing people in, it's what revs their engine, it's why they want to be here and come to work every day. And then your detractors are reasons you're losing talent. And you've got to be able to look at that and say, it's a look in the mirror, really, and saying, are we okay with what we see? If the answer is yes, lean into it. If the answer is no, let's address it.
I just love. I wish I had met you years ago. I think I would have just brought you into so many of my clients. Talk to Shannon because we can do some good things with this company, but everyone's got to get on the same page. To me, I look at corporate partnerships as an opportunity to grow with other companies. Do you guys have partnerships? Like, for example, you're talking about leaning into something you do well, then you've got your detractors. Do you have other like management consultant type companies that you partner with when a company realizes, yeah, we need to change that,
Yeah.
and bring that other company in?
That's a great question. So we are, if we have that question and it comes from our client and they say, okay, well, we really want to address and work on this. If the team doesn't have expertise at exaqueo, then we may recommend somebody else. We might refer them to someone, but we try to remain agnostic. And we really want to understand what it is that the client is looking for. And then if we can make a connection or put other great people together and make an introduction, we're happy to do that.
Yeah. So you have some of the capabilities, it sounds like, in-house too.
We do. So our team all has come from in-house before consulting, and our CEO and founder, her name is Susan. She worked in-house in HR leadership positions in the hospitality industry. Our chief consulting officer was head of HR in the automobile industry. So we do have some of those in-house capabilities that we could help. But if we can't, we're really honest about it. And we might say, hey, we can't, but we've been in your shoes before. We've got someone that we can put you in touch with. Would you like an introduction to so-and-so?
Yeah. All right, as we begin to wrap up, I've got just a couple more questions. I had a lot of thoughts that kind of came to me about this. Like I said, this is something I'm real passionate about. Having seen as many companies as you have, are there some best practices out there that you would recommend for candidate experience right from the get when they are looking online to decide whether or not they want to apply at your job? To your job online?
Yeah. So most candidates start their job search on a search engine, right? So going to Google, typing in, they're looking for finance job or retail job near me. So people are starting their search there. Job postings are the unsung hero of employer brand and recruitment marketing. We really need to focus on how we tell our story in those postings to attract the right talent. So that is one very, very tactical place that I would start, but it's a really important touch point. The other one I would say is the career site. The career site is your online storefront to the world. That is the single largest asset and place for you to tell your story. And I think a lot of organizations just sort of gloss over the career site. They put on the bare minimum. They sound very vanilla. We're hiring. We're a great team. Come join us. They're not using that digital real estate to really talk about how they're different, how you can thrive here, what is the environment, what is the impact that you can make. They're not going deeper, it's staying very superficial. And so I would say really looking at your career site through the lens of, are we giving candidates what they need to make a decision? Are we differentiating ourselves from our competitors? And how are we showing up in this space? And are we making it easy for people to find information, understand, connect who they are as an employee or potential employee to what we do? And then are we making them easy to say, I'm interested? So that candidate experience, there's a lot of different touch points that you could explore. But like job postings and career site, that is foundational, in my opinion.
And when you research, and I have done a lot of research on website traffic and SEO and algorithm work, the almost without fail, what the highest area of traffic on a company's website is the job section. 100% to your point. Yep. And I love how you call that digital real estate. It's your boardwalk. It's your Park Place. Go ahead and slap some hotels up there.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and make the most of the fact that that's where a lot of people are going to be hitting on your website. All right. One of the final thoughts I had are questions, because I've had a lot of other companies on that were more HR tech. Now, I know you're not a techie per se, but you've probably seen companies, HR systems or things that they're trying to do. Have you seen any like HR tech that looks interesting to you that you think has a good future, or that companies are really starting to lean into and they're giving some good feedback on the technology side of HR, recruiting, talent acquisition, data management, CRM type stuff?
Yeah. I think the HR tech landscape is gosh. So when when I started recruiting,
Oh no, we don't date ourselves. Stop.
we didn't even have an application.
No, no. Keep the illusion going, Shannon. Keep the illusion of youth going. No. Go
Math,
ahead. Go ahead. You've already burst the bubble.
right? Fax your resume. We're plugging it into a spreadsheet. Like monster.coms, it wasn't
Okay,
even
wait.
a thing.
I have to say the faxing. For if you don't know what faxing is, good God, you're young. Okay, I remember when we used to fax resumes over. We had our company logo on a stamp, and you would ink it up, and you would place it on the resume in certain places. You wouldn't put it on a purely white area space because they could cut it out.
Yep.
Okay, never mind. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Right? Like I remember when headhunter.net came out, which was like a gazillion years
They were based in Atlanta.
and like so I've seen the landscape grow. I've seen the players grow, and I'm really excited about how people are thinking about the experience that we're creating for our employees and our candidates and how technology can enable it. I don't think technology without strategy can get a little messy. I remember being in house and wanting technology to do things for me or the platforms to do things for me, and it wouldn't. So we have to like bolt new technology,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then you create these like clunky systems that aren't talking to one another. So I appreciate systems that talk to one another, that give talent acquisition and HR professionals line of sight into what's going on outside. So with their ads before somebody's even come to their career site. And then when I get that full line of sight from what's happening before they've even landed on my digital real estate to now they've applied and now I can actually see we've hired and performance. Like if you can get that full line of sight, that's where I think technology shines. There's not a lot of technology that can do that today. I'm really excited about platforms that are helping to take some of those rote, tactical, high volume tasks away from HR and talent acquisition. That the AI and the technology can do that for them so that they can focus on relationship building, strategy, things that are really making an impact. So that sort of technology, whether it's a chatbot or it is a scheduler or it's somebody that's helping communication run in a more streamlined way,
Mm-hmm.
types of technology that I'm really excited to see continue to grow.
Yeah.
I love video also.
I was hoping you were going to name drop a little bit.
So I
And
met
if you do, like, it's okay. You don't have to. I was just because I think there's so many of them out there,
there are.
and you don't want to play favorites. I understand. You're so good. You're so good.
I would say if you're working in talent acquisition, human resources, employer brand, and let's say you're trying to figure out what is the technology for 2025 that I want to be looking at, I would say look at the technology that's going to helps you scale. So if you know you want to do more employee storytelling, video is a great way for employee storytelling. You can then take video and put it on all of your channels. It can live on your career site. So looking at video platforms that help you scale and help you do that really easily, those would be the types of platforms I would start doing demos and looking at. If you are looking at your employer brand and saying, okay, everything's right here with me, I'm one person, I need to put tools in the toolboxes of my recruiters and other people, I would look at platforms that help you to arm and empower your ambassadors and your teams to be able to do that themselves and self-service and create assets without you having to do that yourself.
Ooh, I like that one. Now that's a good one. That's a good tip because that's very common. I think is that one person internally has kind of taken the ideas over, and it all kind of sits on their desk.
Yep.
And to be in a more, honestly, to be able to leverage yourself and do more and increase the size of your tent of scope of influence, you got to be able to push it out to others.
And that's what technology can do. So as long
Yeah.
as you know what your strategy is, you know how your organization wants to show up for people, you've got that, you have the strategy, the messaging, you know the brand, you've got all the brand components, using technology to help you scale that. I mean, I think that that's such an enabler.
The piece of advice I'll give as we close is the AI and chatbots and automation. It sounds amazing, but until you clean your database and normalize it, you're going to spend a lot of money and you're not going to get the results you want, because you've been around, your company's been around for years and years. And if you're not careful on how you're collecting that data and how that data is filtering into your ATS, for example, and then now you hear these great podcasts of, oh, let's do this, let's automate. Well, you can't automate data that's not cleaned, purged, and normalized. And if you want to learn more about that, just go back to, the podcast is on Spotify, it's on iTunes. You can also find it on our blog. Just kind of scroll back and you'll find I've interviewed other executives from those companies. You can learn specifically how to do that, because Shannon, everything you're saying, that's a really, really good idea. And I would just say step one, get your data clean. And then step two, now you can push those tools out to all your teams and people. I tell you, I could have talked to you for hours. I mean, as a former recruiter and in branding, I love this stuff. I don't know who stuck around for 45 minutes. Kudos if you lasted that long. Y'all need to get busier at work. If you're still here, you add some work to yourself. In all seriousness, Shannon, this has been fantastic, and I really want you to come back. We've got so much more we can talk about.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's definitely do it.
All right.
We don't even need a reason. We'll just do it.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm here.
All right. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you next time. See, I still can't get rid of my great music.